Sequels. There are good sequels and bad sequels. There are sequels that are too short and sequels that are too long. Some sequels are prequels and some sequels are technically derivatives. Sometimes sequels have sequels and then more sequels after that. But what makes a good sequel? So again, recently I had a little bit of time in between rendering and transcoding to play a bit of Far Cry 4, Call of Duty Ghosts, and just the beginning of Wasteland 2. Now first off, I loved Far Cry 3, so shouldn't Far Cry 4 be just as good? Well, maybe not. You see, there are two main reasons I can figure why a company would make a sequel, and it's the same for any media, whether that be movies, books, or indeed video games. Reason 1, the first game needed a sequel. Now this is the best case scenario 99% of the time. The first game ended in such a way that not having a second game to fill in the story further would be irresponsible. However, this can also be detrimental to this series when, instead of ending a game satisfyingly, the developers choose to put a massive twist/cliffhanger at the end to justify the next installment. This is lazy writing and frankly makes you as a studio look desperate. I'm looking at you, Activision. And reason 2. Companies see their fan base as cattle and want more money. This can actually be good or bad depending on how shamelessly the company sticks to the original concept. In some cases, the resulting game is incredible. That being said, I've never seen a sequel made this way outshine the original. Most of the time, sequels made for money have the fatal flaw of being rushed out and are genuinely untrue to the originals. Another thing that companies don't seem to realize, holding the IP to a game does not make you qualified to remake it. They do it anyway, but it normally ruins it. Occasionally, there is actually a third reason, and that is the fans want a sequel, but the company will just not make it, so they end up making their own. Sometimes it works, and other times it just ends up being like a really bad fan fiction. You see, it all depends on the game. Some games deserve sequels desperately, and others need to be left the hell alone. Going back to Far Cry 3 and 4, if you haven't played them, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil them, but I really liked Far Cry 3. The gameplay was solid, the story was, well, kind of fucked up if you think about it, but that's what made it so good, and everything blended together nicely into a great game. Now, Far Cry 4 was by no means a bad game, but it just wasn't as good as 3. You see, everything about Far Cry 3 worked together. The story and the gameplay were designed to complement each other, but Far Cry 4 drastically changed the story and didn't change any of the gameplay. Let's say you're putting on a theater performance. The props and stage dressing were created for the script, and the show was amazing because of it. Now, you need to make a second play with a completely different story, but using all the same props and set. That was Far Cry 4. I suppose to their credit it turned out better than I expected, and they did include some new modes, but the ability to ride an elephant doesn't quite fix all the other problems. It comes close, but not quite close enough. Now, like all media, there are always exceptions. Sometimes a sequel for money ends up being fantastic in its own way, like Saints Row 3. And other times when a company finally makes a sequel that's needed, the game is so rushed it's awful. Look, the whole point of this video is thusly. First, be careful what you wish for. I thought I wanted a sequel to Saints Row the 3rd until I played Saints Row the 4th, and realized instead of a new city and new wacky gameplay, I got the old city reskinned, and the same old gameplay just this time with cheats enabled by default. And I know Volition got bought out and it was the new owners who forced out Saints Row 4, but I still can't believe I paid like 50-something bucks for that shit. Second, the easiest way to tell if a game company's in it for the money over the gameplay, just take a look at their previous games. If it looks something like this, it's fair to assume. And look, if you want the same game year after year with shiny new graphics and a handful of new guns, go nuts. Just remember, before you get disappointed at the ending, they will never fully end a game because the second they close a plotline, they'll have to put another 10 minutes of brainpower into figuring out another story. And third, if you see a need for a sequel, there's nothing stopping you in this day and age. You see, I say nothing, when in reality if I wanted to create, say, a new Mario game for instance, Nintendo would have its low poly foot so far up my ass with a cease and desist, I'd be too busy picking shoelace out of my teeth to write the first line of code. But when driven and talented people set their mind to something, they can accomplish anything. And if you don't mind waiting for the copyright to expire, or giving it away for free, you too can make a sequel. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm in the process of pre-ordering Fallout 4. Oh right, one more thing.